Hello, everyone. Welcome to Immigration Time. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. As you know, this is Michelle Fanger, and I'm here to give you information in regards to immigration and answer all your questions that you might have. I love to share the information. I know oftentimes people get stressed out with all that they're hearing, and I'm just here to let you know that you don't have to have fear because, like in everything, there's always a way to resolve it so that you could get legal status. And that's the whole aim of when you come here, when you try to relocate, is to help, as they used to say in Jamaica, sort out yourself. Share it. Hello, thanks for joining. Please share the live, everyone that's joining, so people know that we're on and we're ready to go. And as you know, you could always ask your questions. And once you have your questions, you could drop them in the chat and I respond. I remember last week somebody stated that they sent some questions by email. I looked through my email. I did not get those emails. So what you could do is you could put a headline. If you want to send a question to my email, you could put Immigration Times so that I know that it's coming from you and it's pertaining to the show. And as I said, I would respond to the questions. And as always, my email is admin@fangerlawfirm.com. And let me know if everybody's hearing me well. And let me know if you have questions. So one of the major things, as you see my topic, is that do you get scared when you hear all this information that is going on? And the reason why I specifically had that headline is because I've gotten calls from individuals that stated that they've heard something and they wanted to know if it's true and how will it impact them, and they get nervous and they have to sign on with an attorney because of this fear that they have. One that I got today was that if you have a conditional green card and if you are going through a divorce, you're divorced, everything is suspended, you're not able to travel, you're not able to work because you're divorced, even though you haven't filed to remove the conditions. I don't know where that information is coming from, but usually when you have a conditional green card, they give you 2 years to remove that. You get the conditional when you're married for under 2 years, and the USCIS will approve, immigration will approve you for a conditional green card, meaning they're giving you at least 2 years to establish that you're in a legitimate marriage before they give you your 10-year green card. So usually while those 2 years, things happen during a relationship, things fall apart, you get divorced or separated. But usually immigration is not too keen to be like, oh, you're divorced 2 years, so we're gonna take away your green card. Usually you have to, after those 2 years, you have to file a petition to remove the conditions of the green card by submitting whether you file jointly with your spouse if you're still together. So you file jointly saying we're still together, we still have assets together, we still file our taxes jointly if you did. We have new fresh pictures of us together. Immigration will review it after 2 years and say, all right, we remove the conditions. But things happen, like always in all relationships. You hope for the best, but things happen. And immigration understands that things do happen between couples and people can separate and they can divorce. So they have options for individuals who go through a separation where you could self-petition for yourself to remove the condition. Oftentimes people get scared and be like, all right, the relationship is over, they don't know what to do, they're gonna just try to figure it out, or they go silent, go without status. But there's an option. So if you are going through a divorce situation where you are abused, there's an option where you could ask to remove the condition because of abuse, or you could self-petition based on those terms. But while that is pending, while you're trying to remove the condition, what usually happens is that because of COVID, since COVID, what USCIS will do while your case is pending is send you a letter once you submit to remove the condition that states that you have all your benefits are in place until a decision is made. Right? So I don't know why this fear is coming, having people in a panic mode that because you're divorced now you lose all your status immediately. That is not the case. You're still entitled to your benefits until things are removed. What will happen is that immigration will send a letter stating that if they're going to revoke all your permissions, they will send a letter. All right. So if you're just joining this immigration time with yours truly, Michelle Fanger, you know, it's a short show. We're on for like 15 to 20 minutes. So please tell your family and friends, share the live, ask your questions, and I'll definitely answer those questions. Thanks everybody for joining in, tuning in. I do appreciate it. I know it's a weird time of day, 3 o'clock, to have a show. Everybody's busy, you know, working, doing other things, but definitely share, tell your family and friends, and I'm here to answer your question. Another thing I see that's happening is for individuals who are going through the adjustment process, and for some reason they are going through where they have gotten a notice that they intend to deny their application, or they're asking for additional information and they get in a panic mode. Usually they do this because based on either if you had the interview, they have questions in regards to your marriage. So it's a matter of submitting additional information or additional evidence to support your marriage if you're in a legitimate marriage. So no need to be in a panic mode. Sometimes people see the intent to deny, they get more nervous, and whether they get just the document stating they want an RFE just for additional information. So just be mindful of that. Nothing to panic about. Take your time. If you're confused as to what is happening, definitely, as I said, always reach out to an attorney to discuss, to talk about what's happening, and they'll give you guidance. Even if you don't use the attorney to actually handle the case, it's always good to speak to an attorney if you want guidance and what to do. Definitely consult, do a consultation, and you'll gather that information to help you. In regards to the intent of denial, as I said, when you're going through the process, you just have to submit the additional evidence that is needed in order to get your application approved. It doesn't mean that it's going to be denied. They're going to give you time to submit the additional evidence that they need. But if you're going through and you actually get a denial letter, and they state why they're denying your case. Usually people get fearful when they say, okay, you have 30 days to leave, everything is revoked, people get nervous. But you're able to appeal that decision, because oftentimes they have to look at the whole evidence of what is provided. If you do have an interview, they do look at statements made during that interview. So if you go into that interview with you and your spouse and you're making inconsistent statements, where you make one statement, your husband make total opposite statements, obviously it brings into question what is happening in the relationship. But it doesn't mean like your relationship is fake or false, because sometimes people get nervous in interviews. So they might, say things that are not, you might think it's false, but it's actually true, but they're just not thinking clearly because they're nervous. That's why I always tell people before an interview, just relax. It's just a conversation you're having. Just be honest. Always, while you're doing things with your spouse before you go through the interview, you actually notate mentally things that you do together, like your first date. You went for eating. Where did you go eat? And what, like your wedding day, who was present at your wedding? Because an interview might not go as easy as both of you sit. What can happen is that they could decide to separate you guys, not because they suspect anything, but that day they might be like, all right, this couple, I'm going to separate them and ask them questions. So your questions are going to be similar. They might have them different time, but they look at what your response are. So just be mindful of that when you're going into an interview. If you're with a person, be familiar with the person. If you're living together, be familiar with your household. Because I've been in interview where they ask, where do you keep your shoes? Where does your wife keep her shoes? Where does the husband keep the shoes? Where's your toothbrush? So sometimes they will ask these random questions. So you have to be mindful of these things when you are going into an interview or when you're married. Because currently they are waiving a lot of the interviews, because even today I've got green cards where I have no interview for my clients, but it's randomly where they will select you for an interview. But not all cases will go without an interview. So once you submit it, don't be too confident, because you might be selected for interview, not because they suspect anything, but because they just want to pick your case to an interview. So always, while you're going through the process, be familiar with your spouse. Also, keep up with the evidence that you submit. So if you have bank accounts and you submitted them, you don't just submit it and the bank account is closed or inactive. You have to keep it active, because they could go back and say to you, I want all the statements for the last 2 years from your bank account, just to review and see what activities are taking place. Because the bank account, they don't just look at it and say, oh, the person have the bank account. They look at transaction. They look at transaction to see if they are transaction of a couple, whether you're paying bills together or buying groceries together, what you're doing with this account. So it's not just, oh, I opened a bank account, or oh, I had added that person on my insurance, or I filed taxes and add them. They look intently at all the information submitted. And it's not just one thing they look at the quantity of information and quality of information that you provide. So just be mindful of that. Lon asks, Michelle, my brother has filed for his adult daughter and it's over 4 years now, and she has not heard anything from the embassy as yet. My brother is a US citizen. What can I do to assist? Hello, unfortunately, there are certain categories takes a longer time. So if it's an adult child, it could take anywhere from 5 to 6 years, 5 to 10 years probably, because it depends on how old they are. So once you're older, a child is older, it takes way longer. There's nothing unless there is some extenuating circumstances, such as some major medical emergency, which is really hard. They just have to wait. The only thing I could say is that if the daughter isn't married as yet, she would have to remain unmarried. That should be my suggestion, because if she becomes married, it puts her into another category. We should have to update USCIS, and then it would push her time out further. So she just would have to wait. There's nothing really that you could do. Usually with those categories, if she's able to get a visa, they do allow them to get visa to travel back and forth, but not stay here. And not just, which I wouldn't recommend if she comes to the United States, because she's not entitled to any immediate benefit, because she doesn't fall into the category of a spouse or a minor child or a parent. So she wouldn't be entitled to any benefit. So she'll just have to wait. The thing is that they did say that they want to speed up some categories where people are able to add value to the US. They're meaning they're healthy, able-bodied, and have certain skills. So we'll see how far they get with that. Sherrod says, you are live on my page. Thank you, Sherrod. I appreciate it. I want to be live on everybody's page. I appreciate it. But I hope I answered your question. So just to go more into it, usually when a child is over 21, it takes a longer time for those cases to be approved. Also, if you are petitioning for a sibling, that really takes 10 years, around 10 years. That's why I always say to, like, when siblings call me and say they want to petition for their sibling, I always say, does a sibling have another option, such as a child who's a US citizen or a spouse? Because those categories do take a long period of time. And sometimes I know it's hard for people to understand, because I have clients that I have their case pending and they're calling me, I need a date. And I have to keep telling them that I have no control, because those categories take the longest time. The categories that take the shortest time are for spouses, minor children, or parents of US citizen. Remember, a green card holder cannot petition for a parent, but a green card holder can petition for a spouse and their children. So those categories take a long time. So as I say, if the party is petitioning for you, I will tell people, don't go ahead and start selling products, selling your worldly possession because you think you're going to migrate soon. But what you could do is, in the meantime, keep building legacy. And what you could do also, if you're a parent with a green card, you can petition for your child. But once you become a citizen, you could fast track their application by submitting their citizenship documents. right? So yeah, those categories take a long time to be processed. So they're just gonna have to wait until the authorities that govern change up how they do the process and how they speed up the process. What other things have happened in my practice that I think I need to highlight everyone about, which I've always and continue to do, is for those individuals who are traveling here visiting on a visitor's visa. I've seen it quite often now where individuals are being returned or their visa revoked because they do come here stating that they're visiting with some evidence that they're coming to work. How they get this evidence is usually by looking at correspondence in your phone. Like sometimes people are coming to work at a restaurant or with a family friend and they have correspondence in their phone that basically states that you're coming here. So just be mindful of that. If you're coming here to work, you have to get the required documents to work. And if you're coming here to visit on a visitor's visas, you have to come here to visit and then go home. You cannot work. You can, if you're coming here to visit and you want to change your status from that of a visit to a work visa, you can. You could always change your status as long as you have you're in legal status when you come here and before you try to change your status. So that's an important thing. And usually if you're violating the immigration laws in regards to your visa, it can bar you for life. Because sometimes they will tell you that, you could reapply after 10 years, after 5 years. But it's really difficult because once it's notated that you violate the immigration law, it's going to be on your record and it's hard to get a waiver. The waiver can be done, don't get me wrong. You can apply for a waiver. But sometimes it's difficult, especially if they have you under making a fraudulent claim or willful misrepresentation for immigration benefit. And you don't want to have that at all on record. So I definitely recommend that when you travel on the correct documents. Ensure that you're honest when you come through the border to Customs and Border Patrol. Be honest, because they will put a notate in your file. So be careful when you're traveling. And also for those individuals coming through the border, I know I spoke about it last week, when they do take your passport, don't go and say you lost your passport and try to apply for a new passport, okay? Don't back up the system. Just be patient and petition. Ask, of course, for your passport. They'll, in due time, send those passports back to you. All right. So if you're going through, I think last week I spoke about asylum. So I'm not going to talk about it this week, but as you know, everybody could apply for asylum. There are certain work authorization that you could get if you apply for asylum, if you do qualify. So you could definitely go about it. It's a hard thing to establish asylum, but if you're able to have your evidence to prove it, it's definitely worth it. And I spoke about the requirements for asylum. One thing that comes up a lot is the income requirement for individuals who are doing petition, the affidavit of support. When I talk to clients, they have to oftentimes get co-sponsors because they do not meet the income requirement. And oftentimes the co-sponsors are very weary of providing support because they don't understand or providing their documentation to establish that they're able to support this party. But I always say to them, the documentation that you provide to me is sent directly to immigration, that I don't use that information. So it's fairly safe and secured. I don't know about other individuals and their practices, but what you need to know is that you're stating, if you do the affidavit of support, that you're able to cover for that person if they're not able to provide financially for themselves, or their sponsor, the person that initially doing the sponsor, can provide for them, and they won't be a burden to the government. So you're attesting that you're going to provide for them until they at least become a citizen. So you just have to ensure that you know what you're signing up for, because the government can go against you if that individual does go on any form of certain government assistance. All right. Sure, it is asking, once immigrants migrate to US, how long does it take to get their green card? Sometimes with clients I've seen, they've gotten it within 2 weeks, but as you know, there's a lot of delays, so it can take a while. It could take over So I think it has taken a while. But usually the norm is that you get it as soon as you come in within 2 weeks. You get your Social Security and also your green card. There's a delay. If you haven't seen it within a week or two, I say give it a month. I'd recommend that you definitely call in to USCIS. You could go on the USCIS.gov website and ask them to review your file and let them know that you did not receive your document. What they'll do is they'll provide you with an update. So definitely, if you see the clock running and you haven't gotten your card as yet, but be aware that if you do come into the US, they do have a stamp in your passport that you get. It's a temporary green card. It's usually valid for a year. So it means you could do anything with that temporary card. You could travel, you could do anything with that green card. I've had clients use that stamp in their passport to go get their Social Security number. So it's valid for a year. So even if you haven't gotten your green card, you still have that document to show that you have a green card and that you have legal status, which you could travel with. All right. So don't be fearful or mindful. Sure said thank you. You're welcome. Yes. So that was a good question, because I've had people worry about not getting their green card or fearful that they can't travel. And I always say, yeah, the stamp means you're able to travel. You still have your benefits until you get your card. So you could definitely use your card to travel, conduct certain businesses, right? So, but if you haven't gotten it within a month of being here, I'd always recommend go online, USCIS.gov, and request that they send the document to you. All right. And I hope that was helpful. Again, if you're just tuning in, I know people are tuning in late. This is Michelle Fanger, and this is Immigration Time, to answer all your questions and calm your mind and let you know that, it's a fair system. I know that a lot of people are fearful that they're going to go through the deportation, but to be honest, the priority now for the administration is not for people who have minor violations. You shouldn't break the law, immigration law, but their main focus is getting rid of hardened criminals, terrorists, or people that have minor crimes. Major crimes, sorry, not minor. So if you have a minor crime like overstaying, it's not a big priority for them. And you'll realize if you're going through the immigration process, what they'll do is delay your case. They'll push out those cases because the court is so overwhelmed with all the asylum cases. So only if you have some major crime will they push to get you deported. Obviously, they don't want people like you within the country. So you don't have to be fearful if you have certain minor violations. And as I said, always, if you feel like you might qualify for some immigration benefits, consult with an attorney and figure out what options you have, because there are several options that are available, but people are not aware of them. And oftentimes people think the only way to really get your green card is through a family, a spouse. But there are other ways. So definitely consult with an attorney. And before the show ends, remember we have a major election coming up. So if you think you qualify to become a citizen or know somebody that does, definitely apply. If you're not sure, consult with an attorney and apply so we could have your vote. I hope you enjoyed the show. And join us again next week at 3 p.m. Bring all your questions, share the live. If you're just joining, you could rewatch the show, share, tell your family and friends to join, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.